Good day, everybody. My name is Robert Savino, and I'm a trustee at the Walt Whitman Birthplace. I greet you today on behalf of Cynthia Shaw, our director, and Walt Whitman Birthplace Association, and welcome you to the third series in season 2, Triangulation Journey, Poets Building Bridges. Poets Building Bridges is produced by Poetrybay Productions for Walt Whitman Birthplace and led by George Wallace, who has been a writer in residence here for 11, or I guess it's 12 years now. The Birthplace offers events throughout the year, many of them on Zoom, and I welcome you to check out our website. I thank you, all the performers and all the followers joining us on this journey. I thank Lisa for filling in for Heather as our technical director. As always, I thank George for the continuance of this program, the continuance of supporting Walt Whitman Birthplace, the continuance of supporting poetry. And this week, I'd like to add an additional congratulations and applaud him for being named Poet of the Year at the 5th Bao International Festival in Shanghai, China. So as I turn this baton over to George, I ask you to join me in applause for his latest achievement.
Robert, thank you. That wasn't necessary, but thank you for that. I appreciate it. So, excellent. Now, just as we proceed, I'll ask you to make sure that you're on mute unless you're the person speaking, so we minimize the extraneous background noise. Yes, welcome. Thank you, Robert. Robert is a very fine poet and a former Suffolk County Poet Laureate himself. At the Walt Birthplace, he's been instrumental in bringing a lot of excellent poetry to what we do at the Birthplace. And I must give credit to Cynthia Shaw, the executive director for at least a dozen years at the Birthplace, for all she's done to make it a center, not just for the interpretation of Walt Whitman historically and taking care of an historic building and all those things that entails, but opening the doors wide to innovative ideas in regional, national, and now international poetry collaboration. So it wasn't always like that. So the fact that the Walt Whitman Birthplace is doing that is to her credit, and I thank her for that. Yes, I've been 11, 12 years now as the Birthplace writer in residence. That's kind of the minor going, because the big ones are the poets in residence, like Yevgeny Yevtushenko and Robert Bly and Denise Levertov and all sorts of the world's greats. But I've been grinding it out beneath the surface and doing what we do. So this is a very important venture on the part of the Walt Whitman Birthplace to have this this triangulation project and to take on the role as host of this project, which, as I've described to all of you, Pierre, is an effort to bring communities of poets from different parts of the world together to share, listen to each other, and hopefully build on that experience out beyond the holiday squares that we're all in at the moment. Hollywood squares that we're all in at the moment. So thank you all for joining us. We have with us representations of 3 groups today. A Romanian diaspora group led by Claudia Serea, who's, I think of as a New Jersey, New York City person, but Romanian diaspora. We have John Roche, who used to be up in Rochester, but has become foundational in New Mexico as a organizer of New Mexico poetry events. And we have with us Lenny Dellarocca from South Florida. Lenny is also, I don't know if I should be telling on him, but he's originally from Massapequa. So he's a Long Island boy originally, but been in Florida for many, many years. And at various points in time, he's raised his head to take true leadership role in poetry in South Florida. So we appreciate all the different things he's done over the years. Each of you here, I'm looking through this very fine panoply of people that are with us today. I think I can't see anybody here that I couldn't talk about and say some of the fine work you've done. So all of you here, thank you for joining us either as participants today or as listeners today to the event. It'll be on YouTube in a couple of days, but for now, we'll enjoy this show. I'm going to turn it over right away to Claudia Serea, who I've had the pleasure of publishing a number of times, and also worked with her over in Rutherford at the William Carlos Williams Center as part of the Red Wheelbarrow Poets. But she is representing the Romanian diaspora today. So please, if you would put your hands together for Claudia Serea. Take yourself off mute, Claudia.
Thank you so much, George, and thank you, Walt Whitman Birthplace. And what a great idea to gather so many poets from different places in this series. And thank you for having us. I'll start reading from my book, Writing on the Walls at Night, which was published in February 2022 by Unsolicited Press. And it's a book of prose poems, of which Andrei had the pleasure of reading, and he offered a few very nice words about. Some say that it's a book of surreal prose poems, but others say they're all very real. So that shows what reality can be. So it's all based on my childhood in Romania behind the Iron Curtain, and then immigrating to New York City later. The caterpillars. The caterpillars kept me company. They lived in the 2 mulberry trees and munched on the leaves. At night, I heard their crunch and rustle until they crawled into my dreams. In the collective, Grandma fed the mulberry leaves to the silkworms. Time was fuzzy and spun days of raw silk. Nights were cocoons. A furry flood, they climbed the walls. They covered the table and chairs with moving lace. The little girl crouched in a corner. She wanted to be a caterpillar too. Her only chance was to weave a cocoon and hang under the bed. The silkworms got sick and died in the summer. The caterpillars invaded the porch. The mulberry trees' purple blood stained the dirt beneath them. My brother and I picked the sunken mulberries from the ground and ate them, then spoke with black tongues. Once, instead of a mulberry, he swallowed a piece of black and glistening chicken shit. To this day, he feels very lucky. Luck is something you ingest or step into. Sometimes it's a beautiful woman wearing a flame dress and turning the corner. But most of the time, it's just a byproduct of pigeons. Make me lucky, mother, then throw me into the fire. And she did. So those are some childhood memories. And now fast forward to the Russian hat. Everyone had a Russian hat in Romania. I got mine at the flea market. It was expensive, oversized, and soft with a silver sheen. There were people who said my hat was made of cat fur, that all Russian hats were. But I knew different. It was a skinned Russian bunny. I walked through cold Romanian winters with a silver bunny curled on my head. From under it, you could only see my eyes. My headaches grew worse with each winter. It was the hat wrapped tightly around my head. It kept it warm, but it was heavy and squeezed my skull. I suspected it wanted to smother my thoughts in fur. I stopped wearing my Russian hat after I got to America. After it started bellowing Russian ballads loud enough to cover the noise on 34th Street. Ochi chornie, ochi stranie. It was embarrassing. I sold it to Ursula for $5. Ursula was Swiss and looked very pretty in my Russian hat. She had a cat Stanton found on Stanton Street. On cold winter nights, the hat sang Russian army choir songs and Ursula drank vodka. Stanton, though, never learned to trust it. I left my home looking for a new city. After years of wandering, I exchanged my old cement city for a new one made of glass. The city of stray dogs for the rat city. The beggar city for the one of the homeless. The city smelling of urine for the one of piss. I walked the streets looking for the girl of my past, light-footed and happy as a bird. She's gone. The streets take me to the same squares, the same houses with the same closed doors. There is no new city. It's the same one, the one I carried inside me all along. When I see the Black Sea again, the sea will also see me. She'll open her green eyes and greet me with white horses and hammers. She'll recite my poems. She'll welcome me in her cold bosom, smile with thousands of salt teeth, and carry my name from wave to wave. For I'm her lover, Ovid, the exiled. Signs the end of the world is near. Time to move to New Jersey. Mother and I walk through the woods and a woman with a twirling umbrella shows up, dressed as a clown from the Zamboni circus. She's telling me a message, but I'm distracted by her umbrella and I don't understand. A dog comes by and it's my little brother. I recognize his eyes, the way he looks at me. He's limping, so I carry him home. Giant fires light up the sky. We're on the highway near my hometown. The hills are burning. In Times Square, Jesus is eating pad thai for lunch, and a bunch of Elmos are joining the armed forces. A recent transplant from the ninth circle of hell chats with an old lady in the subway. She can't hear anything because Spider-Man is playing the saxophone. In the tunnel, someone detonates a teapot bomb by accident. Everyone runs but the sax player. In Bushwick, the local artist takes her peacock for a walk. The queen bee is walking tigers on Broadway on a golden leash, and my neighbor is walking a white dog named Noon and a black one named Midnight. He smokes and stops to pick up after them. He has a cat named Insomnia at home. At Starbucks, the latte costs $39. The barista is wearing a Putin t-shirt and a Karl Marx beard. He speaks with a strong Russian accent and writes Comrade Claudia on the cup. E.E. Cummings is eating a freedom omelette with freedom fries for breakfast. I pay for the latte and sit at a table with Lord Byron. He's holding a toy bus in his hand and says, God bless you. The walls are covered with portraits of Justin Bieber and Beyonce. On the black and white TV, Walt Blitzer announces that Beyonce has just won the presidential elections. One should always ask, at the end of the world, what would Beyonce do? She'd move the White House to New Jersey. And I'll close with what happens in the poem stays in the poem. Take a dream vacation to your beautiful pain. Enjoy its five-star hotels, fine dining, and dazzling nightlife. Find new romance under your heart's Eiffel Tower and play the penny slot machines. Slide your tokens inside the wounds and pull the handle until the three cherries align. Pound after pound of shiny poems will pour out. Don't delay, book your trip today. It will be the experience of a lifetime. Thank you so much. I'm gonna put a link to my book in the chat if you wanna check it out. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you a poet, a Romanian-born poet, whom I greatly admire, and who was actually, is one of my, when I came to the United States, I said, you know, what do I want to be when I grow up? I thought I would be like Andrei Codrescu. So he doesn't need any introduction. But I'm very happy that he's here today. So please welcome Andrei Codrescu.
Thank you, Claudia. That is a very lovely thing to say. And thank you for those poems, which are terrific. I didn't hear them before. This was, I think I talked about your first book, and these are later works. They're wonderful. Is there a way to focus on the reader? To just have a view of the reader when they read poems?
Yes, Andrei, if you look on the top right of your screen, you'll see something that says view.
Oh, yeah.
Click that and go from gallery to speaker.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. All right. Terrific. Sure. I was born in Romania. I write in English. I write in Romanian as well, you know. So, you know, it's sort of equal now. It took me a while to relearn how to physically how to speak Romanian, because you have to change your face and your muscles to start being fluent, you know. So anyway, this is from a new collection called Too Late for Nightmares, which we lived through a few of them, and I thought this is enough. For now, it's too late for nightmares. So this is they were all written while at the height of the COVID age. So these are intimate questions of the COVID age. Have you exhausted your store of social distraction? Why is that kid bawling? Does that mean he wishes he'd never been born? Is that hungry over the mask look the best you can manage from 6 feet? Have you exhausted the film industry? Have you read all my books? Have you run out of synonyms for doom? Are you sick of Zoom? You hear a heavenly choir filling 6 feet of unrequited desire. What should I watch? What are you reading? Are your children as weird as mine? Are they even mine? Who the fuck did I marry? Is that show still on TV? Should I watch an Ingmar Bergman movie before or after I kill myself? How can we be both starving and overfed? Did you say I will never eat anything out of a can, as God is my witness? God enjoys a social distance. Did we put all the cans on the steps for the starving mobs from the future? The mobs with can openers and guns. Can I be socially useful, please? Are you working on the 6-foot-long artificial limbs streaming sympathy, massage technique, and soothing music, jumping eyeballs that can land 6 emphatic feet? To open the windows of the soul in the eyeballs of people who can afford them, who can't afford them. If you aren't, why are you still here? Are you making new horror films? Did you find a bloody body in the bathtub? Was that the neighbor who didn't want to mess up his own tub? Or did you cover your friend with ketchup and poetry? Did you just cut up poetry anymore, or is that your fingers? Is that music the sound of breaking sex toys? Why did you shoot your TV? It was Netflix or me. He got pretty desperate at some point, you know. One of the things I wanted to did, you know, as probably many people with children did, is walk on all fours, which I highly recommend because the quadrupedal position is really good for your back, and it takes care of this major problem for us sitting, you know, the walking on all fours. So it's walk on all fours. I remember walking out of the ocean. What struggle. Millions of mollusk ears and shell games that hurt. I remember getting up from all fours and looking down on all my astonished, variously shaped former friends. Not one of them wanted to look up at me. Now I was up. Bipedal and lonely until there were a bunch of others. I remember the first scene in 2001 when I killed another. I remember that every time I bent down to be closer to the busy world of things that crawled, loped, or burrowed, I was condescending and they moved away from me. I remember towering over everything that wasn't me. I remember the day I howled in pain because my back gave out. That day was the day I knew my body was weakly hinged as the place where it first stood up and I wanted down again. Lord, help me walk on all fours again. I know that it is late. We only grow taller like the towers we can't stop building. Since we got language, not one non-human creature deigns to speak to us, though we pretend in vain to understand them. Animals find it more understandable when we shoot them than when we kneel down and pretend we are their friends. We do kneel down often to pray, not to commune, but pray that we won't suffer from the back pain that is our sign of Cain. I remember that I can still return to water and do flips, but I'm in charge now of all the things I covered over. I remember kneeling to gods who were so tall I couldn't see them. Their heads were in the clouds. We barely reached their sandals. Even the mono god was so tall, he dropped the tablets on Moses and made lightning to scare us all to the death we knew was coming. In the little world I live in, I sell diminishment at $1 an inch and practice quadrupedal yoga every morning in my living room, hoping to walk one day into the street with my quadrupedal brood. It will be the day of no pain and of trading language for nuzzling. If we succeed, it won't be so hard to hope that learning screens hurt less than when we first left the ocean, equally pushed by hubris. Our new weak spot is memory, a bad back and a lousy memory. May smooth our way to becoming humble and wild again and good. So this was written to the purpose of starting a movement, of course. Quadrupedals, but then I heard two high school kids walking on the streets, and one of them said, well, I was in Jamaica and walked barefoot, and the other one said, you walk in New York barefoot, honey, you're not gonna get home with any feet. So, yes, there is that. You can do that in the country. So anyway, that's, that is enough. But these poems were written mainly mumbling to myself during the height of the pandemic. So, I'll put a link in as Claudia did to the poems. I look forward to hearing all the rest of you, since I don't know many of your work. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Back to you, Claudia.
I'm not sure Carmen is here. I sent her a message, but she's running late.
Oh, I'll send her a message now by phone.
I'll
Maybe
tell you what, if Carmen comes in, we'll add her in after John's group or at the end if she comes.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. So I may have to give an abbreviated introduction of her unless Claudia or Andre can can introduce her briefly. But that's what we'll do now to keep this moving. Thank you both, representing New Jersey. Now Andre transplanted from Louisiana to Brooklyn, and we welcome him to the New York area, and hope you'll stick around with us for many years to come. So
Thank you so much.
That's our group from Romanian diaspora. Next up, I'd like to introduce John Roche. And in introducing him, I'll just say the extent to which this is an example of networking and how you can go from one thing to another. I mean, I did some graduate study out in Oregon with Kitty Josby from Rochester. When she went back to Rochester, she invited me up there, and I met John in Rochester, where he was prominent in the poetry scene there. John introduced me to Foothills Publishing and Michael Zarnicki in Western Massachusetts, who I co-read there with Craig Zuri from Pennsylvania, who travels all over the world representing poetry, and was in Albania at the time and North Macedonia, and he introduced me to the Tetova North Macedonia group, where I went, and I was recipient of a Naim Frasheri Prize at the festival in North Macedonia. So this is some of the ways that triangulation and networking can really pay dividends, and for yourself and for building the community of poetry. So not to say that John's not worth hearing about what he's doing in New Orleans and New Mexico now at this time. He's been there a couple of years. I had the pleasure of visiting him in Albuquerque, and his better half, Julie, are now living in Placitas, midway between Albuquerque and Santa Fe. It's a fabulous vortex for progressivism and the arts in New Mexico. And he is going to introduce his friends and colleagues from that part of the world to us now. So please, if you could, welcome John Roche.
Thank you, George, for that really nice introduction and for inviting the New Mexico crew. And thanks also to the Walt Whitman Birthplace Association for hosting these events. I wanted to just briefly talk about New Mexico. It's the 5th largest state in the Union, but only 36th in population. And since even many Americans don't seem to know where New Mexico is, let me just say that it borders the northern border, the Rocky Mountains and Colorado, and the south borders Mexico and El Paso, Texas. To the east is much of the rest of Texas, and to the west, Arizona. So that's where we are. New Mexico is an officially bilingual state where the majority, more than 50%, speak Spanish. Many speak one of 8 Native American languages. And despite or because of this geographical, linguistic, and cultural distances, New Mexico has always been a very active poetry place. It's a place where poetry has been well received, and both poetry and songwriting and corridos and so forth. So it's a place that produced writers like Rudolfo Anaya, Simon Ortiz, Levi Romero, Jimmy Santiago Baca, and Margaret Randall. And there are thriving poetry scenes throughout the state, all 4 corners. And today we'll be featuring 3 poets from the northern cities of Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and Taos. And I'll finish our portion of the program by reading a couple of poems from here in Placitas, a village northeast of Albuquerque, where Jules Nyquist and I run the Jules Poetry Playhouse. So we're going to start out with Albuquerque with Anna C. Martinez, mother, grandmother, performance, competitive slam poet, and civil rights attorney, who is currently the poet laureate of the city of Albuquerque. Born in Los Angeles at the height of the civil rights movement, Anna was then raised from school age in Espanola, New Mexico. She's also the in-house poet at Los Pistolores Instituto Cultural del Arte in Taos, and she has been the Albuquerque Slam Champ, the XXX Haiku City Champ, and the 2019 Albuquerque Slam Champ for the Mindwell Slam. Also on the board of directors for Burke Revolt Poetry Slam, and opens her home for free to touring poets. And we are eager to hear Anna Martinez.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. This is an amazing honor. I'm just going to open up. I'm originally from Espanola. I'm in Albuquerque right now, but I'm originally from Espanola, which is right in the center of the triangle that is Taos, Santa Fe, and Los Alamos. So it was a very interesting valley to grow up in. So I'm going to start off a poem called Capitan, and I'm just going to let it roll. That night, Emiliano Zapata washed my feet. Handlebar whiskers scratched the itch between my legs like myth reflected in the moon on the mesa, like silver tongues of sage reaching as he rides and rides underneath the moon's watchful breath, rides and rides all night. Calor de aliente, respiras caliente, wings of exhale lead the way. The smell of earth and dirt disturbed into flight by those 4 legs forged in steel like hands carved from the dust that flies to the beat of the earth. This land belongs to those who work it with their hands, mi campesino. Where it was law that money ruled all, you took it back, gave it back, plowed fields and acequias, planted schools, and campesino credit unions. Self-ruling communitarian democracy, un pueblo unido, the politic of confidence, always incites betrayal. The city is full of sidewalks, you say, and I keep falling off them, but pay no mind to that. What with 20,000 soldiers, you overturn the capital, Capitan, not in rape and plunder, but thirst and hunger, knocking door to door, asking for food and water. Tráeme ese hambre, comandante, ese sed de justicia que te esperan mis botas. A pie y sobre el llano te llama mi llanto y te dibujaré con mi canto y serás tú, Zapata, quien escucho tocándome en la mañanita. Come to me, supreme chief of the revolutionary movement of the South. Fly home like falcon and roost in my mouth. Yet remain free as we understand the battle is left at the door. Enter, and on my knees I will remove your boots and your shame of tears. As you overthrew the capital, so do me now. Here has always been my wish, eye to eye, ojo a ojo, frente a frente, raíces enredándose, jamás seremos vencidos. Never again to be defeated. The smell of earth and death disturbed into flight by our four legs, forged in steel like hands carved from the dust that flies to the beat of the earth. As your eyes understand my fight and your hands recover my lands as promised, a time of truth and justice. And now rest. Face buried in my chest, inhaling sweat and tears from my breast, lost in my blood, hint of copper on your lips, kiss me. And I will finally find a homeland, Aslan, in aura of your crown, magic from where others turn and run, yet I stand ground and call, Oleme. And the smell of the smoke of your body riddled with bullets fired from every of their rifles until empty. Escúchame, in the laughter of 50,000 pesos, besos del traidor, mátenlo. And then in the footsteps of the burro that carried you home to Cuautla for half the bounty, your body photographed and displayed as proof of your non-existence. So why did the one have to die for you to arrive? As between the two, who is truth? As still your horse can be seen galloping, prancing, bucking, reflecting silver under the sun, even as time for talk is done. Nothing now but await your hoofbeat. You need but reach your arm from my leap, and we will raise dust from this place. Silver-tongued sages reaching as you and I finally ride away. That is from my book. Thank you. Called Pura Puta. It just came out last June. It's a play on the virgin whore, kind of the title. And it was also, got a blurb in there from Jimmy Santiago Baca, since you gave him a shout out earlier. This second poem I'm gonna do is one that recently came to me, and it's a little better description of who I am as myself and as the poet laureate. And it's called Don't Be Nice. People. Nice people are afraid to say things that I am not. People like to be seen as nice, to play nice. Oh, you look nice. How can I say this nicely? Could take nice and shove it. Nice is for people that cannot handle the truth of our times, that cannot handle tears, who expect us to handle the truth in a way that still benefits you at our expense because we're nice, right? Too strong not to get over it, right? Heard from the very first time till the day that we die. Nice is a bitch with a blocked throat chakra, choking the chicken of truth, mistaking quiet for peace. Don't mistake her for me simply because I can be kind. Mistake my kindness for niceness at your own risk. Nice does not rock the boat, baby. Kind is a lagoon crowning a tsunami. Nice, well, nice worries about upsetting people in the grand old scheme of things. Kind does what is right. Nice, well, nice turns the other cheek, particularly when it sees unkind with its own eyes. Kind takes names and kicks ass. Nice is busy being liked. kind is busy being kind, pissing people off, simply existing, gone mad, as kind people tend to feel things crazy, dramatic, when actually kind is knowledge and power. And right about now, fucking furious. At my age, I avoid shit, confrontations, because I'm afraid of me, not you, afraid of my own goddamn bursts of kindness, furious floods of sadness, divine mother magic, somehow, somewhat, always relabeled as madness. Swallow those tears, cheer up, buttercup, buck up. What is wrong with you? Is all of that. And reason enough for tears. You see, happiness as set point for all human existence is just nice. Some shit's sad and should make us downright mad. And yet we learn it polite to live and die in a lie about the heart's truth. Muffle its beat, our strongest muscle defeated, muzzled in pursuit of false acceptance, muddled in a world drowning in saccharine. Nice. Be kind. Kind with the nerve to walk your own beat like a Zora Neale Hurston, like dust tracks on the road, like every tongue has got to confess, because if you are silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. Indeed, glory be Missy, so no offense, but I will not bite my tongue to say to your face so you can rewrite my tale twisted. Appear to play nice victim because you know I don't play. Yeah, that kind, not nice, not suffered the way you expect. Oh, my bad, not offered the other cheek, Christ-like, not nice. Yet sometimes the most Christ-like thing that you can do is put a mother in his place. You see, anger too is kind and Christ-like. The part of you that knows that exploitation, injustice, abuse, unacceptable. Anger, the part of you that knows that you deserve to be treated with kindness. Anger, the part of you that loves you and would rather see them walk away, boy, than go blind to their disrespect. You see, anger too is kind and Christ-like. So don't let them get you twisted and don't let them save you for later. Like heaven, just slay them now with kindness. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Wow. And I know you've been extremely busy with your laureate duties, so thank you once again for agreeing to do this. Always a great pleasure.
Honored to be here.
So, John Macker, if you would unmute our next poet. John Macker grew up in Colorado. And he's lived in northern New Mexico for 25 years in the Pecos mountain region and now in Santa Fe. And John has published 14 full-length books and chapbooks of poetry, 2 audio recordings, an anthology of fiction and essays, and so forth. His most recent books are Belated Mornings, Atlas of Wolves, The Blues Drink Your Dreams Away, Selected Poems, 1983 to 2018, Desert Threnody, which was winner of the 2021 New Mexico Arizona Book Awards Fiction Anthology Prize, El Rialto, and Chaco Sojourn. For several years, he was contributor to a great magazine, Malpais Review, and his one-act play, Coyote Acid, was produced last year at Teatro Paraguas in Santa Fe. And John lives in Santa Fe with his wife, Annie, and 2 dogs. John Macker.
Thank you very much. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
I'd like to read from this book called Belated Mornings. Just came out. And this first poem is a little bit about my Catholic childhood. When I went to parochial school. It's called St. Louis Blues. My first confession was at St. Louis Catholic Church on Sherman Street. The yellow light over the confessional meant one of us had knelt down and was saying, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned." While for me, it meant this could be the end of days. If If I was to drop by tomorrow, I'd say it's been 50 years since my last confession, the same number of years Roberto Bolaño lived. Father, I swear, these are my sins. But I didn't swear. I would remember the stained glass coronas surrounding the sacred heads of Joseph and Mary and the saints like full solar eclipses. I'd remember the first Mexican beer I ever drank. I'd pray for my friends to safely navigate the variants. I have sinned. Our parochial school, Sister Veronica, was an old crow and possibly now a saint. A corona surrounds the sun hard in the sky and blinds me as I leave the rigid darkness. Where is the benediction for the animals? Where are the desolation angels? Where the prayers from Mother Earth? The sepia-toned, votive-lit echo chamber of pews, a crucifix fixed on the North Star, the devout whisper of second graders. I remember. I genuflected. I crossed myself, and for that moment, my conscience was clear. The holy water in the baptismal font didn't roil when I passed by, but I had used the Lord's name in vain. I grappled with impure 7-year-old thoughts. I feared and loved my sister. I venerated the Holy Ghost in every cemetery of the soul he, she, it haunted. Now, Mother Teresa is the star of her own stained glass window. Jesus on the cross admonished me from the altar for all of my future trespasses. They say it was a miracle he survived. Thanks to everybody. It's wonderful hearing this fantastic poetry, and many, many thanks to George Wallace for this entire program, this year-long program. Thank you, John Roche. And it's just wonderful to see everybody. Anna, I haven't seen you in a long time. This poem is called Ghost River. I'm kind of a freak for rivers, and this is about the Colorado River and the fires that happened up in Colorado last summer. Last summer, after the fire, Grizzly Creek carried tons of mud, sludge, burned scars, and cinders to the Colorado, expecting to flush it all downstream, a cleansing, as if the river was an emetic, until all toxins disappeared. And the river roared on, still clear, still undammed, unvarnished. The echo of its blue spirit through the shadow and ash-blackened canyon reached the desert-fixated, scar-faced silence in peace. The river has mandibles, a center of gravity, dark-skinned muse, a light-skinned muse, an elusive inventory of names. And as far as the wind's concerned, we're all ghost rivers. Our spirits twist in them, lose shape. Notions of the hereafter are hung out to dry. Sometimes I'm a northern jaguar in a river's body. I drive to where the waters howl until they give up their names. Mojave, Rio Colorado, Kiowa, Medicine Bow, and whomever I'm thinking about at that moment in their fall. The wind drives the 4 directions out of rivers until they're parched. River has the crooked smile of dead things in her mouth. River watches and leaves the premises while we decay. And if the river's distracted, immortalizing the dead, the cold wind weaves our words into song until we can see our breaths again. This is where the deer come to lay down their bones, where Natalie Diaz wrote, "You can't tell a river to itself, anywhere, any self. She sizzles like a fuse." And mountain rivers exchange languages, rites of passage, turbulence, free-falling, downstream, white noise of solitude. Brown trout in the calm pocket strikes a fly. And Roadrunner tears through the desert's mirage at dusk and carries slivers of the dry Rio Grande's mirror in its beak. And sometimes I'm a river in a jaguar's body. I drink from the Yaqui until I've drained all the tears from the heart of Mexico. River is a cataract, a character in Rivers of No Return, in the human myth of origins. The spirit of poet Richard Hugo is a river that flows deep underground and returns as a love poem. Years ago, a friend drowned in the Ganges, expecting to find his guru who didn't have a clue. The river has yet to give up his ghost. And I'd like to end up with a short poem. This is called Poem with a Line by D.G. Nanook Akpik, one of my favorite poets from the Arctic. It's called For the Spirits Who Have Yet Not Rounded the Bend. And when my day comes, let it be an early spring day, last snow before allergy season. Scatter my words like birds. Tell them I relished the desert's exoskeletal summers. And the data shows I'll return as a Mexican raven. But until then, bury my ashes deep in the north wind. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, John. It's always a delight. There's very few poets that I know that so beautifully convey the Southwestern geography and geology and zoology and so forth. So anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're moving north up to Taos to hear Catherine Strisik, who was the recent Taos, New Mexico Poet Laureate for the past 2 years. She was also the recipient of a 2020 Taosina Award as Woman of Impact. And her publications include Insectum Gravitas, The Mistress, awarded the New Mexico Arizona Book Award for Poetry in 2017, Thousand Cricket Song, the manuscript Ekaterina, which is a semifinalist was a semifinalist for the Philip Levine Prize in Poetry. And she's co-founder and co-editor of the Taos Journal of International Poetry and Art, and has 30 years of publications. Catherine's poetry has been translated into Greek, Persian, and Bulgarian. Catherine, if you will unmute.
I did. Thank you, John. Hi, everybody.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thanks so much for inviting me. Yes, I've been in Taos. It's coming up on 40 years in March, which I'm just kind of blown away. I grew up here. I'm back on Cape Ann right now with my mother, who just got out of the hospital. So I'm hoping I don't lose you. I'm in a really bad connection at the moment with the stormy weather. But I'm going to read 3 poems. They're all in a very recent manuscript that I just finished called Dear Unholy, the majority of the poems written during the pandemic. So I'm going to start with 2 and kind of following the river theme that John just read so beautifully out.
We're losing your vocal.
We're perfectly high pitch into the solstice, rippling the river. Oh, shoot. Okay, should I start over? Can you hear me?
Start over. Now we can hear you, but
okay, yeah, I'm nervous about this connection today. Okay, just like wave to me if I go out. These first 2 poems were written while I was living on the Annisquam. Someone just wrote, delete your photo for better sound. Really? Should I do that? I don't know what to do.
Let's try it with your photo.
Okay. Consideration to the heron while winter along the Annisquam River. How will you pass? Will you demonstrate to us your forthright tendons by flying? Will you perfectly high pitch into the solstice, rippling the river? Heron, geese, mallard, bobbing the sheerness, wrinkling in unison from estuary to mouth. Is it significant, the high pitch, if the Trinity is not caressed, just forgotten until unembroidered or frail or without lace edge or wayless to the open sea? Are you able at once to invoke our spirit, soul, and body, but trust we are tissue and blood, a holy glow? How will you sharpen our sight before dusk? And what red ring surrounds the clouded 2/3 of a moon? My lover says, your hair has grown longer in my absence, and 1,000 sparrows tremble during migration. And is love this remarkable in this instant? What is the scent of your flesh, and what do you inhale from the mud flats? And can you enthrall me casually again by combing? Will you step into the shallow, the edge, when there is no promise? Your steps are infrequent, with wings bowed. What to you am I? Annisquam Village. Annisquam is a little village up on Cape Ann, part of Gloucester. Annisquam Village. In the air, coarse salt, always where bells toll. First at the Historical Society celebrating the earth, and then at the birth of my daughter. It is April 11th, after all. And there are church bells too. It's morning. Seagulls squawk, this birth, this birth, this birth. And forsythia and daffodils, so much yellow, all exceptionally loud. Sometimes what looks like smoke rises from the sea. And the last poem I'm going to read is takes place along the Chama River in New Mexico. 5 days, Christ in the desert, Abiquiu. At a time of day when the temperature drops, the hooded hidden ones with their plain black robes pray. Each water-filled glass quenches the spirit. I do not enter 5 days of monastic life to fool an astonished monk into fire. No, no, to the one who accompanies me with his waxing, waning impulsivity, evening air, cool abandonment, where I describe shapeshift by 5 p.m. to him, quartz in the shape of a whale's jaw, faith, its crystalline grin from dusk's rock red cliffs outside me, wound above my cell. I touch close to an electric god, billow breath loud, forgotten guidance, touch close to the affectionate goat, the sulfur water rippling tepid. Pray for my leave taking, touch me, half empty vessel, savored by rustling from the bush, hovering on edge at the mimicked cliff, the man's wide eyes and his want, and damned by the body leaning forward, damned by the floorboard and stone speckled, the singular bush at the clamorous rim. The music here, Gregorian, as if song could strip all human want, each psalm of fingered ritual where the Chama flows. Night vespers about to begin. I've loved the folds in my napkin, the lush, humbled martyr who tomorrow with passion and monetary triumph chooses solitude. So the monk and I have something scarred to release. a small addiction to broke bread or delicate palms awakened in this canyon, this monastery sweet coup of desire, frayed. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Catherine. Beautiful, beautiful poems. Thank you. And I'm glad your
Thank you.
audio recovered. I'm saying I'm glad your audio worked. Yes.
Oh, good, because it's
Yeah. Sounded
everybody's
good
kind
after
of
that. Yeah. And enjoy the rest of your time up there. Okay. So I'm going to finish off our portion of the program and with two poems. And the first, since the theme is poets building bridges, I've revised an older poem from one of my Foothills books, Topicalities. It's called Here's for All. Here's for all those poets who never publish, rolls of rotting paper in drawers and closets and under sinks, bathtubs full of manuscripts, notebooks available only to St. Peter. Here's for those who do publish, but never leave their mountain hovels, just send their poems out to friends' little magazines, regular as epistles from the Unabomber. Here's for all those poets who never attend cocktail parties because they can't remember names very well, and the arts patronesses in their low-cut gowns make them nervous. Here's for the Vietnam vet poet skulking in the back of the hall. Here's for the tenured beat poet playing jazz real loud in his office, or the one who shouts, "Go away," when students knock, or the one who sends poison pen emails to administrators at midnight, or the brilliant one barred from teaching, or the one tapping away into the night on his manual typewriter, hoping to get it all down, intent made clear before lymphoma silences him. And here's for the young poet who freaks out on acid and is soothed by a famous shamanic poetess, and years later gets an operation to become Tiresias. And here's for the gifted millionaire who gives it all away to starving musicians to free his angel, and the one who blows a fortune on heroin, and the one who plays William Tell unsuccessfully, and the one who climbs the devil tree and can't get down. And here's for the poet who gives up poetry to follow the false gods of deconstruction. And here's for the poet who wanders the many rooms of his father's mansion, but can't find an exit. And here's for the poet who gets tossed out of the art gallery reception for having sex in the John. And here's for the poet who really thinks liberation means he can go anywhere without clothes, radiant in the checkout aisle. And here's for the poet who hangs herself on Halloween when sleep won't come any other way. And here's for the poets who watch the aurora borealis because someone had a craving for a cigarette and so left the party and so noticed there's a whole other universe up there, and got them all to drunkenly drive out to the cornfields to watch. And here's for the poet who tore up my bathroom in a rage and we had to throw him out into the night where there was much wailing and gnashing of teeth. And here's for the poet who got his life back at 50 with his mother dead, his father dead, and his relatives all dead, but they left him with a handsome monthly stipend. And here's for the poets who blow their brains out, or worse, let their gray matter slowly seep into 10,000 composition papers along with the red of their pens. And here's for all the poets who wait their turn interminably until the featured poet finishes expounding, and they might get a few moments at the mic. They might, if the line's not too long, and if everybody obeys the time rule, and if they can be heard over the cappuccino machine and the sound of the cash register. And here's for the poets lurking on Facebook or waiting their turn interminably on Zoom. And here's for the poets who wish they could cast out demons. And here's for the poets who wish their chants could really stop the insanity instantly. And here's for all the poets. And here comes everybody. And I couldn't leave without a short Joe the Poet poem. This is Joe the Poet at the movies. It was in a recent anthology called Moving Images, Poetry Inspired by Film, edited by Jennifer Maloney and Bart White. Joe loves the movies where he can get glimpses of places he's lived, places he's destined to live, places he'd never have thought to visit, but for the imaginations of the filmmakers. Joe prefers a sparsely populated, old-fashioned bijou, maybe a weekday matinee where in the dark he can be alone with his thoughts and his popcorn. Joe's wild about international films which aren't foreign to him, and black and white silence where his mind supplies the sound and color. Joe did his stint in Hollywood back in its glory days, but found himself blacklisted for the crime of just being Joe. When they asked him to name names, he launched into a long litany of people he's been, but they stopped him after Methuselah. As his good friend Charlie Chaplin said, Joe, I make movies for the people, and you're a whole lot of people rolled into one. Thanks again, George, and everybody.
John Roche. Let's hear it one more time for all the people from New Mexico that are with us today. Thank you so much. Really good stuff. I will interject that we have with us a number of poets laureate today, including Richard Bronson, current poet laureate from Suffolk County. And I would just point out, following up on Anna's inflamed performance, that when Jack Hirschman was named the poet laureate of San Francisco by Gary Newsom, who was the city mayor of the city at the time, now he's the governor, Jack said, dude, you know, I'm going to give you a hard time. And Gary Newsom very wisely said, well, that's why I named you poet laureate of San Francisco. So that does have its place. We don't always have to be nice, and Anna's right about that. So the spirit is good. All right, thank you all. I will point out also that we have a number of people besides besides our New Yorker, solid foundation of New York and Long Island people. We have some people from Massachusetts here today. Roy DeRosie, I see. From the UK, I see George Colita is from Northern England. I see from Romania, I see Dan Duda Murcia, who was with the series in series one of the Poets Building Bridges. I don't know if you know Andre, but welcome to you. And to Oklahoma, I see that we have Cary Grant here. Cary Grant will be a mutual, and the people from New Mexico will have a mutual friend in Dorothy Alexander, who was for many years an Oklahoma poet, and until her late decease was in Santa Fe and prominent in New Mexico. So you guys can say hi to each other. And just finally mention, before I introduce the final group of people, I would say that in addition to Dan Duda, we have two other people from Series 1, which is in March, who were part of that show. And to show you that people come back for more. And that's Patricia Carrigan and Cindy Hockman, who are both here. They were in one of the groups today. So, you know, this is a growing phenomenon, and I appreciate all of your support today and out into the future for Poets Building Bridges. Now, let me turn to Lenny Dellarocca. There's Kathy Donnelly's here as well, so very nice. Bruce, you will remember Lenny Dellarocca. He read for us way back in 1988 or 1990 or something like that at the Poetry Barn in Huntington, Long Island. And was for many years a Long Island asset. And then he moved to Florida and was prominent with the Hannah Kahn Poetry Foundation. He actually found a place for me to stay in Palm Beach. I think it was Palm Beach, Florida. So I came down to visit him. He dropped out of the scene to do his work in journalism for a number of years, but came back and has really made a big splash. And for a number of years has made a big splash with the South Florida Poetry Journal. And now is representing South Florida and the people who are with us today, including, and my final plug here, Denise Duhamel, who's done several episodes of work with us here at the Walt Whitman Birthplace in various capacities. So he's got a stellar lineup to match, I hope, what we have seen from New Mexico and from the Romanian diaspora. Please, if you would, welcome Lenny Dellarocca.
Thanks, George. I love you, buddy. Thank you for supporting me for decades now. I think all the way back to, I don't know, what, the 80s, the early 90s. So thank you for that. And I want to shout out to Andre. I loved you at Exquisite Corpse and hearing you on NPR all those years ago. And it's great to see you here. I'm going to have Marci read first. I'm going to just read their bios. Marci Calabretta Cancio-Bello is the author of The Hour of the Ox from Pitt 2016, winner of the Donald Hall Prize for Poetry. She co-translated, I'm probably going to mess this name up, Marci, Yi Wan's The World's Lightest Motorcycle from Zephyr Press in 2021, which won the 2022 Translation Grand Prize from the Literature Translate Institute of Korea. Cancio-Bello has received fellowships from the NEA, Kundiman, the Knight Foundation, and the American Literary Translators Association, and her work has appeared in Best Small Fictions, Kenyon Review Online, the New York Times, and others. She is co-director for the Adoptee Literary Festival and PEN America Miami South Florida chapter, and a program manager for the Miami Book Fair. And if you guys ever get a chance, you need to get down and go to the book fair. It is a phenomenon. Take it away, Marci.
Thank you so much, Lenny. Can you all hear me okay? Lenny, thank you for all the service you do in South Florida for poetry. And thank you, George Wallace and the Walt Whitman Birthplace, and all of you for being here. It's incredible to be able to hear poems from all over the world. And I'm just really honored to share space with you all and with some much loved South Florida fellow poets. I'm going to start with a poem called Origin Adoption. I clearly don't look like any of my names, and it's because I'm a transracial adoptee born in South Korea and raised in the States. And so this poem was a poem that I was thinking about language and how access to language that feels like home or doesn't feel like home can situate. And I think of all the languages I may or may not know, poetry is always the one I come home to. So origin adoption. My first mother placed inside my mouth a thick tongue, a curled tongue, prone to quick rolling music and bramble-buried consonants. I would never speak to her. These days on this other hemisphere, I twist my second mother's words from my tongue as I do the fruit from my neighbor's tree. Sagwa, chame, apple, yellow melon arching over the sidewalk, ripening into dark hills, deep sun. These days, I peel this craving already buttered with discomfort, recover utterances too long untouched, as if I could know the correct taste of each vowel and verb, sweet on my fingers and chin. I'm working on a second manuscript of poems, and it started with a meditation on forgiveness, what that means. I was raised in a very religious household as a pastor's kid, and so I'm always grappling with this idea of forgiveness and what it means personally, but also what it means culturally and globally, especially now. And I think there are so many divisions, and I think where poetry brings us together in spaces like this, it's always something I'm thinking about. So these next two poems are thinking about forgiveness and community. Meditation on forgiveness. Banyans arch across the road, all braided with orchids and light. Asphalt ragged with roots so that we must slow down and take in more than we otherwise might. This is your favorite road. You said this once, stitching hours into the highways between us, and I remember us drawn up and down the coast, each long-held breath hemming in our frayed days. Now, as I fumble alone, these roots unspool into garlands of stars, far-flung miles gathered back into the arms of a man who, for all your roving, can have a favorite road, and at the end of it, wait for me. There's a lot of waiting in my poems. I'm always jotting down poems as I'm waiting for someone or sitting in a car, waiting in traffic. It's always a bit of a prompt. So this one is an homage to everyone who's ever waited on someone to arrive while you're drinking perhaps too many cups of coffee. On the corner of Commodore and Main. Wait for me where pollen-tongued bouquets strew the sidewalk as a ribboned child makes way for a bride. Tababuya buds brilliant as a taxi cab in rain. My hair a river of wood grain, all full of oak and fishtail plates bound down the spine. Wrought iron table beneath your elbows. The chairs curved back, holding you up. Your fingers warmed by a fourth cup of coffee in which you drown patiently. What woman could withhold herself from you, hair rusting in the sun? Not even I, woman shaped like a braid who crushes petals against my neck. But it seems I am always walking this road swollen with shade. Time and asphalt spend too long unraveling, as if I can never arrive. And while you wait, summer betrays us both into autumn. As Lenny mentioned, I am a translator also, and the poet Iwon, she's a feminist Korean poet, and my colleague and I were incredibly lucky to be able to work with her for the last few years. And they say that translation changes the way that you think about poetry and language. If any of you ever work in translation, I highly, highly recommend it, if nothing else, for the practice. And I think this particular poem came from thinking about her work, which is very different from mine. And she's obsessed with mirrors and the ways that we look at the world. And so when in the pandemic you have nothing to do but sit at home and look at mirrors instead of the television, this poem was perhaps my first and one of the only poems that survived my pandemic writing sprints. So it's called Vanished. When you look in the mirror, time flinches and separates each glance from every past self. Look behind you. Another version of you caught in gossamer. Beside you, another and another, another. What is a mirror? Layers of you suspended and fractal, all your past selves beheld at once. When you stop looking, you've decided which version you will be today. When can you see yourself exactly as you are? You are more spacious than you've ever been. Step through these halls lavished with light. Ambition peels away like plastic, another self slipping away to rest. You wish to be held like you hold your phone. Today, you are memorable. What will you be tomorrow when you finally look away from the mirror? Which luminous version of you stays behind? Which version steps outside? Which version of you gets to rest? And for my last poem, thank you again for listening, and I'm so excited to hear the rest of your poems. This is my One Miami poem, which I wanted to invoke on behalf of South Florida. I am a transplant. I've been here for maybe 13 years. This will be my 13th year. And so I'm always trying to figure out when I can start saying I'm from Miami, as opposed to I now only live in Miami. So this poem is called Buenos Dias, Miami. Everything here is from somewhere else. The coffee, the milk, the woman bending over her lunch, even the fresh cut gold of mango running between her fingers, even the ocean gathering itself and its children from the streets paved with palm fronds and heat. The turtles are not from here. The manatees, the alligators, even the heat is from somewhere else. Puerto Rico, Haiti, Ohio. Dwayne Wade is from somewhere else. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Celia Cruz, Romero Brito, Muhammad Ali. Pitbull was from here with his 305 anthem. And then he wasn't. Carl Hyacin wasn't. Andy Garcia wasn't. I wasn't. And suddenly I was. Now it seems I am part of this nation of heat that drives down into the lungs of this magic city every day. Storm sky in the rear view. I love Cafe Bustelo Cortadito sweet with sugar cane steady in the cup holder of a car I drove down from New York. Here, every morning, I shake my head to the man selling limes or guavas or roses beneath the red traffic light. Every afternoon, I walk to a little cafe window for empanadas, one carne, one jamón y queso, practicing the rollout of R's in a language meant for somewhere else. Every night, I drive back out of the throat of this city, where even the walls say adios, as if they know I'm not from here, as if they know I'm already halfway gone. Thank you.
Thank you, Marci. That was absolutely wonderful. Next up, I'm going to call on Michael, but before I do, I want to do a shout out. George mentioned the Hennecon Poetry Foundation. I was president, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and I did not do that alone. I had a huge help from a right-hand man, and that was Richard Riel, who is here with us. Thank you, Richard, for that. And I want to give a shout out to Susan Williamson, who's also here, who was for, I don't know, 18, 20 years, 15 years, the executive director of the Palm Beach Poetry Festival. And that went on for a long time. And I think many of us here have been there. It was just a really outstanding venue for poetry. Next up, I have Michael Mackin O'Mara, who is not only a colleague and a friend, but he's more like a brother. Michael is a queer POZ poet. He puts down here that he works at SoFlo Pojo, South Florida Poetry Journal. He is the managing editor, the publisher, and the senior editor. I stepped away from it, so Michael is basically running the whole machine by himself. He does that by day and he writes at night. He's been published a number of times online and in print anthologies and journals. His work can be found at michaelmackinomara.com. Take it away, my friend.
Thank you, Lenny. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I'm going to start with one 3-part poem, 3 dreams, 1 sky. 1, at 15, walking a tunnel of winter night, those darkened streets. It's cold. Glacial clouds scour black a 2-story sky. They shudder the veins of barkless trees, catch within caves of attic roofs, rasp the loose shingle. Among concrete and snow-conquered trees, outcrops an official building, and for behind that evening edifice, an official man, herringboned and 50-ish. His lips frame black holes as he speaks of me, his tongueless monologue punctuated with inept smiles. I cross from him and again start home. A hint of moon ghosting through bowing trees shadows my walk past dusk after dusk-faced house. Wind-rallied newsprints scratched by my feet like misplaced autumn leaves. They clutch the gnarled joints of dormant hedge. Through a landscape crystallized into a blackening sky, the man stalks me. The moon stalks us both. Crossing toward the park, I corner, and he's younger. In the edge of my eye, he sheds clothing, years, frame. Silver white, he dances moonlight. 2, at 29. I wrote this long before I knew what the 40 years of losing friends and lovers to AIDS would be like. The taste of brass. Outside a gray sky vows gray rain. Wind rattles dry palm fronds, cast shivers up the bark of trees. Birds chase shelter. When I pretend life is cruel or uncaring, I remember critiquing the grammar of love. The distillery of mind ferments its humors and binges. Today, the rain will fall, brief and violent. Where are my thoughts? I have a photograph. I have grief's eyes and the vocabulary of loss. 3. At 67. Suffer the insufferable star. It's always night here at the pontoon house, the dark water always lapping at the damp lower lip of the porch, to where it sometimes sounds like someone sucking their teeth for a last delicious morsel. Of course the old house creaks and moans. Of course I am always young within it. Sometimes the house is beached, sometimes adrift, usually on a lake or a slow river, at least once on the ocean, far from shore. That every stick of furniture had its sea legs did not seem at all strange at the time. What is strange is that I remember any of it now. This was a place I only visited in dreams, dreams that began, I'm back at the dream house, the secret one that waking me knows nothing about. What's up with that? Full disclosure, I also have a dream apartment that I am allowed to remember, and the catacombs beneath. Not that I do remember the apartment itself. It was not the star of that dream, and may in fact have been many different apartments. The star was the accidental surprise of tunnels, each time surprising. Were they always there, linking place and time? Do your tunnels always have candles? Who lights them? Do you find yourself wearing a miner's headlamp, carrying a Nancy Drew torch? You are not allowed in my dream with mechanicals, which is to say, anything that removes you. But if you're phosphorescent or blessed with bioluminescence, within the dark water beside the pontoon house are human-like creatures aglow, dressed in light, neither naked nor clothed, as if they've swallowed both Milky Way and moonlight, and now it leaks out every pore. They move with the ease of dolphin. They neither beckon nor call. I would say they frolic. They've snagged a bit of jeweled sky, and it too dances upon the water. Is it only because I'm watching that it becomes ballet? Even when it's only in up to now secret dreams of secret houses on dark secret waters, peopled with, swimming with, light. There's much to be said for vicarious joy, for the voyeur trapped in the mirror's edge, for dancing in long-term companion dreams. And I'll finish with another American dream. You discover a body in the woods, well preserved. You've already checked for a pulse because TV. The open eyes, unblinking, flicker with captured light. Can you see what they see? The hands are empty, the mouth about to speak. You listen briefly. Somehow, the quiet invites you to invent a life, a backstory, multiple lives, multiple backstory. Why not? It's your body now. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was exquisite. You're a gem, my friend. Next up, we have Denise Duhamel, who, while I'm friends with Denise, I am still a big fan. After knowing her for many years now, I just love her work. I love her, and she's just a wonderful, wonderful person, as she is a great, great poet. Denise Duhamel's most recent books of poetry are Second Story from Pit in 2021, Scald in 2017, Blowout 2013, which was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award. She didn't put here in her bio that she was also selected by David Lehman to be series editor at American Poetry, Best of American Poetry, and I want to say 2013, but she also teaches at FIU, Florida International University. Denise, take it away.
Thank you so much, Lenny, and thank you, George. This has been such a great reading. I was kind of forgetting that I had to read. I was so involved in everyone's reading, so thank you so much. These poems, I've been in Florida for 23 years, Marci. You'll get there if you want to. And I came to Florida actually because of Lenny and Richard, who invited me through HanaCon all those years ago. And there just happened to be a visiting job at FIU, visiting writer job. And I just planted myself there and stayed. So here I am. These poems will reference Florida quite a bit. Although they're all elegies for my mother, but Florida comes into them quite a lot. This is called My Mother's Cover-Up. I bought one for her at Walgreens, teal blue with sparkles. She was so hunched over and short by then, it flowed almost to her ankles. I kept it here in Florida so that when she visited, it was one less thing she needed to pack. It was in a drawer along with her one-piece skirted bathing suit, which had adjustable shoulder straps to accommodate her lopsidedness, her scoliosis. Now that she's gone, I wear the cover-up and mourn each loose sequin, trying to catch them as they fall. Walgreens doesn't sell this kind of caftan anymore. If it did, I would buy more as a way to keep my mother with me. I walk the seasonal aisle as though it's a metaphor for life itself. Plastic pails and shovels to make dreamy castles, water shoes to protect our feet from rocks, and neon noodles to help keep us afloat. This one's called Nourish. My mother's nipple from where I once fed pokes through her hospital gown as though it is one of the snaps. I'm not sure I should touch her breast, rearrange her, as so much of her body hurts, and she's at last floating on morphine. Her nipple once nourished me, but now nothing can nourish her as she refuses all food. I'm feeling useless, wanting to preserve my mother's dignity, when a nurse with a solution so obvious, so simple, pulls up the bedsheet. This one is called Me Too, or #MeToo. Before #MeToo, we go to see Louis C.K. in Miami. We take a lift, my mom's first, to the Arch Center, putting her walker in the trunk. It's November 2016, a little more than a week after the election. The driver's puzzled. I can't believe you're taking this sweet lady to see his show. You know Louis C.K. is filthy, right? He looks at me like I'm endangering my mother, who says, don't let this gray hair fool you. I was an ER nurse and probably know more swear words than you do. The driver gives us bottles of water and lets us pick the radio station. A year later, allegations in the New York Times, and Louis C.K.'s admission. My mother and I are befuddled. Sure, until then, he was a feminist. We loved Louis, Horace, and Pete. What do Edie Falco and Jessica Lange and Laura Metcalf think? In November 2017, my apartment is still a mess, missing walls that were soaked in Hurricane Irma, then torn down. My mom's in too much pain to make another trip. We talk on the phone about Harvey Weinstein, harken back to Bill O'Reilly and the loofah, Bill Cosby and the Quaaludes. My mother tells me about the handsy doctors, and I tell her about the handsy poetry professors. Neither of us are on Facebook. We barely know what a hashtag is that fall, and we are only starting to read about Tarana Burke. Me too, we kept singing, finally having the language. Thanks. This next poem is called Impossible Poem, and in it I reference Sophie Calais, who is my favorite visual artist, and she's also a conceptual artist. I don't know if any of you know her, but I'm going to describe some her art in this poem, which sounds like it can't be true, but it is. She really did this. It's called Impossible Poem. Sophie Calais, with her mom's permission, set up a camera to film her last breath, not knowing, of course, when it would come. I can't bring myself to describe what my mother looked like the morning of her death. The nurses had cleaned her up, but I can't write more. Surely you have your own experience to draw upon, or one day will. We buried my mother in the ground and scattered her belongings. A bureau for my sister, hutches and tables for my nieces, a chair for me. Sophie took her mother's portrait, Chanel necklace, and a diamond ring to the North Pole, where her mother had always wanted to go. She buried them all under a stone on Starvation Glacier. I took my mother's prayer card and a votive candle and gathered shells to make an altar in the sand. My mother loved the waves. She had been everywhere she ever wanted to go, except for Atlantis. I keep trying to craft the right sentence to explain my mother's impact. Sophie Calais edited the footage to 11 minutes and called her film Impossible to Catch Death. Thanks. And I'll end with this poem, which is called After the Tropical Storm. After the tropical storm, I walk into the Atlantic. The silt so soft, I feel like I'm trudging through mud. I begin to swim towards the horizon. It is then I see the baby loggerheads, newly hatched, the size of quarters, paddling beside me. When they swerve, I swerve. When they bob on the surface, so do I. My mother has just died. I follow the turtles for 2 miles, at which point I become one of them, or they one of me, our shells hardening. We eat kelp and fish eggs, keep each other company. We grow and have babies of our own. Theirs are inside eggs. Mine are inside little poems. Thank you for listening. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Denise. That was wonderful. George, back to you.
Lenny, you're not going to give us a poem?
Who, me? Sure.
Yeah.
Why,
Yeah.
certainly. I had written Sometimes I Feel Like Smoke and just put it on Facebook as a post, and that was it. And then a friend of ours, Virgil Suarez, says, hey, you ought to write a poem. And I said, okay, so here it is. Sometimes I Feel Like Smoke. This references a song, Motherless Child, which I think goes back to the 20s, but I know the version by a band called Sweetwater from the 60s. I don't know if any of you guys remember Sweetwater. They played Woodstock, but I also saw them in Miami in the late 60s. But anyway, Sometimes I Feel Like Smoke. Like the Motherless Child, that song, the version by Sweetwater at the Rock Festival, where I floated out of my body like a mist from a cool morning lawn, rose from the ground in flute ribbons. I wasn't there. Her lilting voice was a pipe dream in my ears. tasted like blue sparks. I'd never been so deep in clothing I wasn't wearing, ragged as the back seat of an abandoned jalopy. Somebody tugged at my ankle as I drifted toward whatever was up there. It was the beginning of the longest cocktail party in the world. My lover was made of things that my older sister told me about girls when I was a boy. I only knew love in a voice, a shadow. I danced like an idiot with a scarecrow, didn't know how to bleed, where it hurt. I never grew up in someone else's house. By the time I climbed down, the concert was over and the girl I came with was gone. Thank you.
Okay, I was just telling G.E. Schwartz, he said, wonderful show. We have one more person because Carmen Firan has showed up from the Romanian group, and I can tell you very briefly by way of introduction. Born in Romania, she's published 28 books in her native country and here in the United States. And been living in New York since 2000 or so. She's got a couple books from New Meridian Arts, a couple from Sheep Meadow Press, a very fine publication, and a collection of poetry, Afternoon with an Angel, The First Moment After Death, and Accomplished Error, two others. So please, if you would, put your hands together for the third of the triumvirate we have from Romania, Carmen Firan.
Thank you. Can you hear me well?
Go ahead and speak. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. Do you hear me well?
It's a little funny, but okay, go ahead and try.
Okay, I'll try to read. I have the feeling that my sound is double somehow.
Yeah, we're getting reverberation.
Yes. So maybe I don't know what to do.
I believe that I can mute the. Are you using your Are you using your audio on a phone and then your video separately?
No, just on the computer.
Okay, because we have you in two different windows, so I believe you're on twice. So I can mute one of those windows. Let me.
That's it. That's it. That'll do it. Good call.
I'm trying to do it myself, but I can't.
Okay. Speak for a moment now, please, Carmen.
Yes. I can hear myself double, so I'm trying to.
Okay, try again if you unmute that one that I just sent you the message in. Do you see it
better now? No.
Okay, let's see.
Sorry.
I'm not quite clear because I have one muted and we're still getting feedback. Do you have two windows open?
Yes, I do.
Okay, is it okay if I close one?
Yes, sure.
Okay. Okay, now try again to speak.
Yes, I think now it's good. Can you hear me?
Wonderful.
Perfect. That's perfect.
I'm sorry.
Go for it. No problem.
Real estate. I have a house for sale in a quiet neighborhood, only a couple of steps from hell. Location is everything. The dead body always exits feet first and is tempted to run downhill while the soul gets yanked free through a window by a well-intentioned grandmother who sacrificed her day to show off the banquet high in the heavens. I have a house for sale with new roof and triple glazed windows. It comes down to predicting the future. The dead will want perfect isolation, high ceilings to keep cool in the summer, and to give the impression of open space. The sky, a stone's throw away, the city, the third stop on the express line, and the best yeshiva just around the corner. For quite a while now, I've tried to sell the house, roofs, walls, and me. The timing is bad, my Chinese neighbor suggests, suspicious of my grapevine, which throws black grapes over their fence, mimicking my childhood transplanted into a foreign body. People are not longer in a rush to buy. The planet keeps getting warmer, everything's growing, enlarging, swelling, will pop up like a balloon, spread to the universe and create other utopias. Okay, but in the here and now, I have an old brick house for sale. Motionless on the thresholds, I'm waiting for buyers from other planets. Please, hurry, it's not even my house. If that autumn morning hadn't happened, the hot exhalation of the beheated city, the silence fallen like a lead curtain, would have kept heading our bets and fancied battles, imaginary geographies. The strong are lonely, the strong are sad, vulnerable in their candor of pressing their desires so far they can not longer follow their tracks by eye. From above, it looks just the same, the dead with the dead, the living with the worthless. The woman of sand. I would like to have been wise, to be spared having to discover there are no sins, that our passage through life wasn't on purpose, to believe in the destiny of the melancholy conquerors, turning wine into blood or water, and to speak with reserve, frightened by all the old proverbs, saws, and warnings told by the wise who never respecting anything but genius and preserved nothing except flawlessness, from which the cynics nurse their eternity, the way the ocean follows its sensuality and always sips from the beach some woman of sand. In the most beautiful life, I hold within my breast the noise of the most beautiful city, smiling enigmatically each time I have to justify its madness when I find myself sketched the perfect trace of its finger in the sand. We will return over here unseen, on the wing of an insect or in the skin of a snake. We will quietly unfold our sheets. Lotus will spring from our joints with delicate necks, moving our world from above so we can reach with our bare feet the sunset. Neither sky nor earth, neither human nor bird, only life chopped up on a tray from which cynical gods taste and spit in turn. And I will end now with a poem called How I Am. Once upon a time, I knew how I was doing. Now I find out from day to day how I am. Well, thank you. And you? Distantly related to the Black female cashiers, to the old gymnast from Chinatown, all the code numbers, card numbers, pin and palm numbers. I push a button again. I leave jokes on the answering machines, touched by their soft voice, the voice of a tired flight attendant, which asks me to stay on hold a little longer because my call is important to them. I am the most important person in the world, and I stay on hold until I fall asleep with my hand on the buttons, remembering how in childhood I played nurse among the whispers of the women in the kitchen who were boiling plum jam and telling stories about our sinful fathers, those wonderful men who came home late with hot loaves of bread. I am definitely the most important, buried under bills, receipts, life and death insurance policies, and offers of vacation on exotic islands. I listen to my heartbeats, pin, pin, in the howl of the ambulances, fire trucks, police cars, vehicles in which I would run away into the wide and good world. And whatever I end up doing, I am well. Nice to have met me. Thank you.
And that was Carmen Firan. Keep your hands together for everybody that we heard from today, from the Romanian diaspora, from New Mexico, from South Florida. Thank you all for joining us. Some fabulous work. And Denise was absolutely right. You really got lost in the work today, quality of the work. So thank you. I'll just wrap up by saying that this third session in our second season of Poets Building Bridges is going gangbusters, and I'm glad you could all make it. Hope to see you next month. I believe it's February 14th that we're going to be getting together. Same way, noon Eastern Standard Time. February 11th, 12 Eastern Standard Time, with poets from Kansas City, led by Sean Pavey, from Colombia, South America, led by Maria Susarquia, and from Florence, Massachusetts, Friends of Laurie DeRosier's, led by Tommy Twilight. So we're in for a treat next February 11th. Mark this every second Saturday through June on your calendar. If you can join us, we'd be delighted to see you again. So on behalf of the Whitman Birthplace, Robert Savino, and also for Lisa, who did a great job of jumping in and fixing the audio problems for Carmen, I'd like to thank you all for joining us at the Whitman Birthplace for Poets Building Bridges. This is George Wallace signing off.